The open meeting law requires that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Therefore, please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. The first item on the agenda is request authorization for the approval of the minutes of August 16, 2018. Motion's in order?
I move we approve the minutes.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 2, request authorization to extend a tentative designation and continue lease negotiations with Wharf 8 Pier 7 Partnership, LLC, to facilitate the redevelopment of Wharf 8 Pier 7 located within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Wharf 8 Pier 7 Partnership was awarded tentative designation by EDIC in July of 2013. At that time, they proposed 2 buildings to be built over the existing water sheet. Designation was extended in September. At the last board meeting, the designation was extended to September 30th of this month. Prior to the August board meeting, the developer submitted a notice of intent to BPDA to commence the Article 80 process. The letter indicates that their intent is now to build a single building, although this rather than 2, although the same square footage of 120,000 square feet. The intent is to provide space for maritime research and development tenants. They are currently working towards schematic design and engineering schematics and negotiations with prospective tenants, and they plan to submit a project notification form to further the Article 80 large project review within 90 days. So we are requesting a 90-day extension to continue discussions and to track their progress, and I look forward to reporting back in December with an update.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Dennis. Item number 3, request authorization to enter into a lease agreement with CV Properties, LLC, for the use of approximately 3,000 square feet on the 5th floor of 12 Channel Street, Suite 506, within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. CV Properties is developing the Canopy by Hilton Hotel in Haymarket. It's currently under construction right across the street. They are in need of space to build a mock hotel suite for the marketing, construction, and training purposes. This will be if approved, this would be the 4th time we've provided space in one of our buildings for that use. Suite 506 and 12 Channel Street is a vacant 3,000 square foot space with no improvements or air conditioning, but it suits CV Properties' immediate needs. We're proposing to lease the space to CV for a 1-year term. They will accept this space in its as-is condition, and they will pay all operating expenses, their proportionate share of expenses for the building. They will, however, be required to install a commercial-grade air conditioning system into the space at their sole cost, which we expect to be between $30,000 and $50,000. Once air conditioned, we will be able to market the space and demand a significantly higher rent than we currently do. In the short term, we will net approximately $36,000 during the 1-year term.
Great. All right. Thank you, Dennis. Are there any questions on the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you,
Thank you.
Dennis. Item number 4, request authorization to approve change order number 2 to McKay Construction Services for the purposes of providing additional construction services to the parcel V1 parking lot within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park in an amount not to exceed $94,093.59. Paul.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. On February 8, 2018, the board authorized the director to award a general construction contract to McKay Construction Services for the parcel V1 parking lot improvement project. The scope was to construct a 270-space parking lot which would support the needs of the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park tenants and nearby businesses and restaurants. During the construction of the lot, it became evident of numerous unforeseen obstructions which interfered with the proposed drainage utilities that I had to get into the lot. The obstructions were left by the previous Third Harbor Tunnel construction contractor many years ago, but it caused a lot of problems implementing the overall drainage system. So therefore, a new drainage system was necessary to be designed by the engineer. New catch basins and manholes were installed by the general contractor, McKay, in order to avoid all these obstructions. In addition to that, McKay was also directed to address a public safety issue we had at Pier 10, about a short distance from the Parcel V1 lot. Concrete support slab was undermined by storm surges and a constant high tides, which caused numerous sinkholes and concrete slab settlement in the public viewing area. The area needed to be immediately protected with safety fencing. The contractor was directed to make the necessary repairs and safely secure the area for continued use as a public viewing area. The repairs included repair to the seawall, new compacted structural fill, and a new top-course bituminous pavement was installed. Total cost for the two items of extra work is $94,093.59, which represents approximately 9% of the total general construction contract. The parking lot is currently open and operational at this time.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Are there any questions from the board?
I have a question, Paul. Do we categorize certain capital repairs as falling under climate change, like anything from the king tides or from the, any kind of flooding? Do we designate those as being caused by climate change?
As an example.
Or flooding, or do we have a category where we're spending capital repairing things that were damaged by unusual ocean activity, I guess I'll put it?
We're just recently seeing a variety of those kind of issues, not only just because of climate change, but also because of the existing maritime infrastructure that we have. Many of the infrastructure that we own was built by the federal government, and we always try and be proactive and plan that the various infrastructure that we have will be in fact repaired or replaced. Typical, like at Wharf 8, we repaired all that bulkhead, and there's a bulkhead right next to the Parcel V1 parking lot. We built that 2 years ago. We spent about $2.5 million into that one too. But climate change, we're working with CLE Engineering right now over at Long Wharf into dealing with high tides and issues related to infrastructure, how high tides affect that right now. And actually we're doing work over there right now with a general contractor repairing some of those. But in general, we try and categorize work for what is needed in the industrial park and the Charlestown Navy Yard and other areas of the city, like China Trade Center. Basically, we would have to utilize the engineering services like we are using right now with CLE Engineering at Long Wharf to identify those kind of issues that you're talking about. So we do have a contract underway right now with CLE Engineering.
I guess I'm asking because I think as the effect of climate change ramps up, it would be good for us to have a record of what costs we endure related to climate change.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean for the
future?
So you can look back and say, wow, this is when we really started having to spend money because of this exact issue. I think we all have to kind of track it.
Exactly. That's a good idea. Well, we are in fact doing that in some respect. And we're also keeping track of the other component, which was the failure of the existing maritime infrastructure, only because of its age. Not because of climate change, but just because it's due to be replaced. So collectively putting those two together, it's a good snapshot picture of what we really need to do to deal with all the waterfront work that we're doing right now.
Great, thank you.
I just have one thing on the new drainage work where it says underground obstructions left by previous Third Harbor Ted Williams tunnel construction. Are we responsible for that, or is there some other type? I know we have to do it, right, because we need to do this work, but I'm just...
That's a legal interpretation. I had to do that work only because I can't slow the contractor up, because by doing that, therefore, it allows him to charge me more money than what the repairs would be. So I basically told him we had to move forward with other than we were at a standstill. Dealing with the state, never an easy issue. Right. I guess we could always approach that subject. A big stretch, in my opinion, but we could always take a look at that to see the feasibility of something like that. But my guess is that
trending that
my guess is that they're not going to listen too heavily for your request.
Just worth the ask.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Item number 5, request authorization to advertise and issue an invitation for bids for the general construction of roadway improvements at Black Falcon Ave and Terminal Street within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Paul.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. January 11, 2018, the board authorized Howard Stein Hudson to contract for engineering services for roadway improvements to the Black Falcon Ave and Terminal Street in the Raymond L. Finn Marine Park. Black Falcon Ave and Terminal Street has not had resurfacing for an extended period of time. Constant patching and numerous repairs were necessary in order to keep the roadway functional and operational. Design work is now complete with the consultant, and the project is now ready for public bidding in accordance with Chapter 30, 39M. The project will generally include scarifying and installation of approximately 3,000 linear feet of bituminous asphalt, resurfacing, concrete sidewalks, ADA compliant, handicap ramps, street lighting. There is some drainage work there as well, new signage, and roadway striping. The project is estimated to cost approximately $1.3 million. Once the general contractor is selected as the lowest eligible qualified bidder, we will return to the board and request authorization to award the general construction contract to that low bidder.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you,
Thank you
Paul.
very much.
Item number 6, personnel. Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary. We have a few items for your consideration on the EDIC agenda. We have 5 appointments for your consideration with details in the board memos. Rosa Herrero de Andres for Senior Planner 1 with the Downtown and Neighborhood Planning Department with a start date of October 15th. Keenan Ryan, Senior Planner 2 with the Downtown and Neighborhood Planning Department with a starting date of October 15th. Catherine Gall, Deputy Director for Workforce and Policy Development with the Office of Workforce and Policy Development with a starting date of September 24th. Michelle Malam, Grants Manager with the Workforce and Policy Development Department under OWD with a starting date of October 1st. We also have 7 travel items for your consideration with details listed in the board memos. Manuel Esquivel in the Planning Department, Constance Martin, Evie Trichinst, Patrick Costello, and Carlos Barbosa, all from the OWD division. And we also have 1 personnel procedure for your consideration with details listed in the board memo. And one last thing, 1 departure. Thomas O'Brien from the Real Estate Division Operations Department is retiring.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you,
Thank
Maria.
you very much.
Thanks. Item number 7, need a motion to adjourn the EDIC meeting.
I move we adjourn the EDIC meeting.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned. And I'll begin the BRA meeting. The open meeting law requires that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Therefore, please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. And the first item is request authorization for the approval of the minutes of August 16, 2018 meeting. Motion's in order.
I move we approve the minutes.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. I'm going to read the next 4, and we'll take one vote, because they're all about public hearings. Item number 2, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on Thursday, October 11th, 2018, at 5:30 p.m., or at a date and time to be determined by the director, to consider the housing creation proposal submitted by Boston Properties and East Boston Community Development Corporation in connection with 41 North Margin Street project. Item number 3, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on Thursday, October 11, 2018, at 5:40 p.m., or at a date and time to be determined by the director, to consider the first amendment to the first amended and restated development plan for 319 A Street rear within Plan Development Area Number 69, South Boston, the 100 acres. Item number 4, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on Thursday, October 11, 2018, at 5:50 p.m., or at a date and time to be determined by the director, to consider the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center Institutional Master Plan Amendment and new inpatient building project as a development impact project. Item number 5, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on Thursday, October 11, 2018, at 6 p.m., or at a date and time to be determined by the director, to consider the 7th amendment to the master plan for Plan Development Area Number 87, Boston Landing, and the 2nd amendment to the amended and restated development plan for the office buildings sports project within Plan Development Area Number 87 for Boston Landing in Brighton. A motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 6, Board of Appeal. Jeff, are there any changes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Director Golden. 42, no changes have been made since the list was created. 42 petitions are being prepared for transmittal to the Board of Appeal.
Okay, a motion to accept a Board of Appeal?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Jeff. Item number 7, request authorization to enter into a consultant services contract with Utile, Inc. for the development of a flood resiliency zoning overlay district and resiliency design guidelines for new and existing buildings in an amount not to exceed $250,000. Chris?
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Secretary Paul Hemus, Director Golden. This past May, Boston Planning and Development Agency, in coordination with the city's Environment Department, was awarded a $250,000 grant from the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program to assist in the development of zoning recommendations for a flood resiliency overlay district and flood resiliency design guidelines for new construction and building retrofits. This project will function to further implement the City of Boston's Climate Ready Boston report, which was issued in 2016, and serving as the city's climate adaptation preparedness master plan. The implementation portion of this plan called specifically upon the BPDA to explore the development of a future flood hazard area zoning overlay and methods to promote building development resilient to future flood events. The project will establish recommendations to revise the zoning code to incorporate extents and heights of future flooding, ensure dimensional and use standards for new construction and retrofits, promote climate readiness, and encourage a quality public realm. The accompanying design guidelines will also address design measures and practices that will need to be implemented for a number of building types within these overlay districts to reduce risk and structural damage from future flood events. Regarding the RFP and consultant selection process, at the June 14th board meeting, we were granted authorization to advertise a request for proposal to engage a consultant team. July 30th, the BPDA issued that RFP for consultant services, and responses were received on August 24th of this year. We received 5 responses, one from One Architecture and Urbanism, ESS Group, UTIL, the Cadmus Group, and VHB. On August 30th, an RFP selection committee comprised of staff from the BPDA as well as the Mayor's Office of Environment, Energy, and Open Space reviewed the RFP responses. Based upon the evaluation criteria, all respondents were interviewed. These interviews occurred on September 4th and 5th. The RFP selection committee evaluated proposals based upon the project manager's qualifications, the experience of the project manager and project team members with relevant projects and project tasks, local knowledge, project approach and management, the content of the proposals and presentation during the interview, and allocation of resources and project schedule. As a result of the evaluation, UTIL was selected as the most responsive and advantageous proposal. UTIL is also joined by a team of sub-consultants with extensive experience related to the project tasks. The sub-consultants include Kleinfelder, Noble, Wickersham, and Hart, HDR Engineering, and Offshoots Incorporated. Accordingly, BPDA staff recommends the director be authorized to enter into a contract for consultant services with UTIL for the amount of $250,000.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Item number 8, request authorization to enter into a license agreement with the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority for the continued use of land, water, and maritime improvements on Long Wharf and in the Charlestown Navy Yard. Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Over the past 20 years, the MBTA has utilized BPDA-owned water, land, and maritime improvements at Long Wharf and the Charlestown Navy Yard to operate a portion of their waterborne component of their public transportation mission. Various licenses have expired, and the MBTA has been utilizing the property on a tenant-at-will basis, or month to month. As the maritime improvements begin to age, there's been some disagreement between the parties regarding responsibility for repairs and maintenance. BPDA and MBTA staff have agreed in principle to execute a new license agreement wherein all maintenance, repairs, and replacement of improvements lie solely with the MBTA. In exchange for a 10-year commitment for the non-exclusive use of the licensed premises. Other key provisions would be that the T cannot sublicense without BPDA approval. We would share in 50% of any net revenue resulting from a sublicense. The MBTA is agreeing to accept all the improvements in there as is condition. They will also indemnify the BPDA against any claims. They're self-insured, but they will indemnify us. And either party can terminate on 90 days written notice.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Any questions from the board?
Dennis, what is the condition of these areas now?
They're in decent shape. There's in Charlestown Navy Yard, one of the floats, the rollers need to be replaced. Just routine maintenance. They're in good shape.
Okay, thank you.
And we're comfortable that the MBTA has the capacity to maintain these facilities?
Absolutely. We will, good point, Ted. We as part of the finalization of the documents, we will have a maintenance schedule that my colleagues in the engineering department will weigh in on requiring when they do what routine maintenance. I'm not qualified to tell you what that should be, but our engineers are.
And we're
that would
fully
be part of the
indemnified
agreement.
on this.
Excuse me?
We're fully indemnified on this.
Absolutely. We will be.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Item number 9. Request authorization to amend the ground lease with Charlestown Rope Walk LLC as tenant and redeveloper of Building 58, the Rope Walk, and Building 60, Tar Shed House, located on a portion of parcel NY-1 in the historic monument area of the Charlestown Navy Yard within the Charlestown Urban Renewal Area, project number Mass R-55, to allow additional time to close construction financing and obtain building permits. Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In June of 2016, Charlestown Rope Walk LLC was awarded final designation for the development of the Rope Walk building in the historic Charlestown Navy Yard. The intent is to develop 97 units of housing, with 20% of those being affordable. The lease was fully executed in December of 2017, and the lease terms required that both financing and building permits would be secured by date certain. The board authorized an amendment to the lease in March and again in June of 2018 to allow additional time to secure financing and permits. Further, in June of 2018, the board authorized the developer to enter into a joint venture partnership with Vision Rope Walk LLC, more commonly known as Vision Properties, for a 50% stake in the project. Vision Properties has developed several historic buildings in Providence, Rhode Island, Lowell, Massachusetts, and Worcester, Massachusetts. As I mentioned in June, I personally called the references in all 3 of those cities, and the reports were glowing with their ability to deliver. Vision Properties will continue to serve as a construction manager and finance manager for the project. The partnership has timely submitted the required operating agreement to BPDA, which was required in the June vote. And they've also received demolition permits from the city to commence interior preparation and roof repairs. They're currently receiving and reviewing financing proposals from interested parties, and we are confident that they will be able to finance this challenging development. We're requesting permission to amend the lease to extend the deadline for both final financing and final building permits to December 31st of 2018, deadlines that all parties think are achievable.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Item number 10, request authorization to extend the tentative designation of Madison Tropical LLC as the redeveloper of a portion of Parcel 10 in the Southwest Corridor Development Plan, known as Parcel B, and to extend a temporary license agreement for continued parking use on Parcel 10. Dana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, and Secretary Polhemus. We're before you this afternoon to request, as was stated earlier, an extension to the designation for Madison Tropical regarding its use and development of Parcel 10. The development team has been working quite diligently on aspects of completion of Phase 3 of that development, which is the 2085 Washington Street component. You'll recall that the second phase, which is the former tropical food site, is now fully complete and occupied, beautiful residential and some commercial. The current phase of the development team's work is really to focus on the pre-construction and marketing of the 2085 component, which includes significant office and commercial. And through their conversations and collaboration with BPDA Honeyman, they are coming close to completion of opportunity for potential tenants. And our staff recommendation is that we allow them this time to complete this due diligence. Much of what they will be doing in the collaboration through this new tenant will provide for completion of the financing that will get the project moving to the next level, hence the request. I will stop with that description and certainly can answer any questions. And also, Russ Tanner, who is the Vice President of Development for Madison Park Development Corporation, is here as well.
Okay, thank you, Dana. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you, Dana.
Thank you very much.
Item number 11, request authorization to extend the tentative designation of CVSE LLC as redeveloper of 41 Regent Street within the Washington Park Urban Renewal Area. Michael.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Secretary Polhemus, and Director Golden. I am here before you to provide an update on this project in which the BPDA granted the tentative designation of CVJC LLC for the redevelopment of up to 14 residential units on a site consisting of a BPDA-owned vacant land parcel identified as parcel L-43B, to be combined with an adjacent privately owned parcel of land at 64 Alpine Street. The BPDA parcel, known as 41 Regent Street, consists of approximately 3,224 square feet of land in Roxbury's Washington Park urban renewal area. The adjacent 5,703 square feet parcel is owned by one of the members of CVJC LLC, Catalyst Ventures. The combined site size will total approximately 8,927 square feet. Since the second extension of their tentative designation at the June board, the development team has been working with the BPDA Urban Design to receive their post-zoning Board of Appeals design approval. They also anticipate receiving a commitment for construction financing from Eastern Bank next week. Under their access agreement with BPDA, they are engaged in preliminary site work to prepare the site for the commencement of construction once they receive final designation and close on the purchase of the 41 Region BPDA-owned portion of the site. We are asking for another extension of their tentative designation to allow them time to receive their commitment letter and financing from Eastern Bank. At this time, we would be happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Michael. Item number 12, request authorization to extend the tentative designation of the Boston Chinese Evangelical Church as the redeveloper of a portion of parcel R-3A-2, also known as Parcel A, located on the corner of Washington Street and Marginal Road within the South Cove Urban Renewal Area. Raul.
Good afternoon, Chairman Burke, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, members of the board. The Boston Chinese Evangelical Church, also known as the BCEC, is currently located at 249 Harrison Ave, adjacent to parcel R3A-2 in the South Cove Urban Renewal Area. A number of years ago, the BCEC proposed a land swap to exchange their property with the portion of parcel R3A-2 of equal size. The purpose of this proposal is for the church to be able to expand its ministries to a new building on a rectangular site, as the existing triangular configuration limits the church's ability to expand in size and capacity. The relocation of the school facility located on the parcel has to take place prior to the commencement of new construction. As such, this extension will allow the church additional time to complete an approved site plan, show evidence of equity funds and financial commitments, and allow the relocation of the school facility to a different location, in addition to providing BPDA and city staff with additional time to resolve existing title issues.
Okay, thank you, Raul. Any questions from the board at this time? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you, Raul.
Great, thank you.
Item number 13, request authorization to issue a certificate of completion in connection with Fan Pier Parcel D project located at 50 Liberty Drive in the South Boston waterfront. Motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Item number 14, request authorization to terminate the affordable housing agreement in connection with the 645 through 651 Beacon Street project and to execute an affordable housing contribution agreement and to take all related actions. Tim?
Thank you, Chairman. The 645, 651 Beacon Street project, also known as the Hotel Buckminster, was approved in 2001 with the addition of residential units within the existing building, as well as additional units and parking in a new building that was planned adjacent to the property. The building adjacent to the building was never completed. And the additional residential units within the hotel have been since kind of reabsorbed into the hotel, leaving 2 IDP units that you could say are stranded in a hotel. So people are actually, in those units, will be living in a hotel. And it has become clear to us that those units are not consistently rented, and the owner has approached us to ask to actually buy out those 2 units. And then they would reabsorb that space into the hotel as part of their probably future renovations. And we would get a full current buyout rate of $380,000 per unit for those 2 units. And that would be paid all at once at the end of this calendar year. So that would go directly to projects that are in need of that money today.
Okay, Tim, are there any questions from the board?
By projects, you mean projects in support of affordable housing?
Correct. So the $760,000 would go to the IDP fund controlled by the Department of Neighborhood Development for the projects that usually they're doing at most about $100,000 per unit combined with other funding sources. So they would be able to create more than the 2 units that we're losing at this project.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then a motion is in order?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you, Tim. Item number 15, request authorization to issue a scoping determination waiving the requirement of further review pursuant to Article 80, large project review for the construction of 72 residential rental units, including 9 IDP units with off-street parking located at 37 through 43 North Beacon Street, and 9 condominium units, including 1 IDP unit, located on Sinclair Road, and to take all related actions. Lance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. Where's our clicker? Just want to orient the board members to the project site. Right here is the Mass Turnpike. The project is at the intersection of Everett Street and North Beacon Street in Alston, right outside of Alston, right outside of Union Square. The project consists of approximately 94,017 gross square feet between 2 buildings. The building in yellow is a rental building with 72 units. The building outlined in red is the 9-unit condominium building with 43 parking spaces shared between the 2 buildings. The unit mix for the rental building is 12 2-bedrooms, 46 1-bedrooms, 14 studios. The condominium building has a unit mix of 2 3-bedrooms, 2 2-bedrooms, and 4 1-bedrooms and 1 studio unit. Mount Vernon Company representatives are available to answer any questions for the proposed project. You will hear from Dave Chilinsky, the architect, and this project's unique because we have had many meetings and a lot of conversations regarding the ground floor retail is going to be donated with this project for 50 years for $1, which is going to be associated to the artist community. There are 9 units on the ground floor that are dedicated or designated to artist live-work spaces. And I'll let Dave Chilinsky take you away on the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Lance.
So highlights to the proposal. As Lance mentioned, there's a condominium building that is oriented here at the base of Harvester Street, which is a 1-block street, and Sinclair Road. The parking for the facility comes off of this 1-block street, Harvester, and then the actual parking is dug into the hill. That's the sort of designation here we're doing with this sort of darkened area. That's actually unexcavated, so it you'll see in a moment that it steps into the hill. On the ground level, as Lance mentioned, there's a gallery space here that runs along North Beacon Street and a public plaza. This red area is the lobby and amenity area. This group of units here on the ground level are those artist-oriented affordable units. And these are the sort of series of stacked loft and townhouse units in the rear. Some basic elevations. This is along North Beacon Street, recently completed building here on one side of Everett. This is our existing building. This is a view down Everett Street. You can see, I was mentioning to you about the fact that Harvester Street down here is fully below the level, over a level below North Beacon, that allows us to actually build the garage into the hill so it's not visible. The building itself terraces down to meet the existing red house in the rear. This is a view on Harvester Street where you see that existing building, the edge of the rental building, the edge of the condominium building, and again, this is Sinclair elevation. So as was mentioned previously, the notion about how this sort of public realm will be landscaped, we worked very hard with the BCDC to create something that truly will work as a public space outside of this gallery, and that we've incorporated in it hard surfaces, some landscaping, but some fixed seating that we think will be very effective at creating a great sort of public space along North Beacon. And then I'm going to take you a quick walk around. This is the Everett Street walk. This is looking back up towards Beacon from Everett Street. A little bit further back here where Harvester turns off here to the right. And then looking down Harvester Street. And one of the interesting things about Sinclair is it's actually a private way. But what we're working very hard on by creating it as a curbless street is to expand the feel of it. Right now, it only feels like it's about 14 feet wide because of retaining walls and things. We think we've done some sort of pretty creative work with making it a curbless street so that it actually feels very generous. We'll have trees, planters, and things to, protect pedestrians, but It allows the space to actually function in a very pedestrian manner when there aren't, the small number of cars that will utilize it. I'll also call your attention to the fact that in working with our neighbors and the IAG, we came across a very unusual circumstance where an abutting property, a group of townhomes that have their parking accessed off North Beacon, historically for the last 20 years have been driving across this parcel, despite the fact that they didn't own it. It was just part of the way the neighborhood operated. And so we worked very hard with them to design the building to allow that, and we've worked with them on an easement that would allow them to continue to use this, because the pattern of how they got in and out of their houses really won't work without this. So we worked very hard to incorporate the ability for that drive to remain on this property. This is up at North Beacon, looking back down Sinclair. We're going to be doing some work here, tabletopping the pathway here, again, to slow car access and pedestrian access down. The interesting thing about Sinclair for us is that it is wide enough to be able to bring Uber down there, to bring our moving trucks down there, to be able to bring our garbage truck down here. And without getting in all the details of the plan, all of those activities can work off of this private way, so that we're on a pretty busy street on Everett Street, and we're in a very busy street on North Beacon. And, there was a lot of conversation with our neighbors about how to incorporate those things. And Sinclair has allowed us the opportunity to do that.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
How is this constructive easement being memorialized in the documents?
Yeah, we are providing a permanent easement. It will be a legally binding document at no cost to the neighbor, and it came as a total surprise to us. And we actually researched that they did not have a right to the property, even though they were using it for 20 years, because it was not adverse possession. The previous owner had let them use it, therefore it was not adverse. But we did know what a hardship it would have been for them, because the snowplow would not have been able to access through the back of their alley, and their property's value would have been affected in a very significant way. So we will be providing them with a legally binding easement in perpetuity.
Great, I had some questions. There were a couple questions noted in the letters. A lot of them I think you've addressed in your presentation, but if we can just back up from an open space perspective, can you give some context on the open space that's incorporated not only into this design, but in the kind of surrounding areas?
So let me back up to the plans.
Yeah.
So what we're doing in terms of overall open space is this front plaza and the ground floor is being set back off of North Beacon, and it ranges from 25 to 30 feet from curb to the first floor of the building. And that's where sort of this area for public gathering is. We're also setting the building off of the property line. The property line is about 8 feet off of the curb, and we're setting the building back 10 feet from the property line. So you end up with sort of a clear curb to building there of about 18 feet, which will allow for the street trees and what we think, part of I neglected to mention the fact that the branding of this building is that it's called the Art House, and it's about the celebration of art. And we are actually looking to incorporate art in you'll notice, I gather, right, the undulating facade actually creates some niches along the street as you walk. We're working with artists to actually populate those so that in that 18 feet that we create along a pretty busy street, which is Everett, that you know, it would be populated with artwork and trees and.
And the last question or concern raised is just around density. Can you provide just some thoughts on kind of how this fits into the context of the current and developing neighborhood of Alston?
Yeah, you know, let's see. I'm not sure we have it in this presentation any longer, but so in the course of working through with the IAG, we actually had a series of diagrams in which we looked at the site that's further down Everett Street, which, you know, obviously is zoned for redevelopment to come back up, and this is sort of the gateway up here at Everett. And that when you look at and I'm pointing to the sort of the first building that's been created here directly across the street from us, that we thought that matching this with our building at sort of the gateway, and then having the building step down the hill and then along Harvester, I think you gather, right? It's that 4-story building was the way to bring the building down into the adjacent neighborhood. These are the existing buildings. The plan for this area is for these to be immediately adjacent to us, 5- and 6-story buildings. And while at the moment it appears a little out of scale with these adjacent buildings, the overall master plan is for these to be, you know, taller than they are. So this is sort of the gateway on either side of Everett to the beginning of that development.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further questions, and a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Item number 16, request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the zoning code for the construction of 45 residential units, including 6 IDP units, with 21 off-street parking spaces located at 30 Thorn Street, and to take all related actions. Lance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. The project site is a short walk from Mattapan Square and a little longer walk from Cleary Square and Hyde Park. It's right off of River Street, and at the street is a dead-end street, which is Thorn Street. This is 10 Thorn, 20 Thorn, and 30 Thorn. It's a vacant lot. It also abuts the MBTA commuter rail line, the Fairmont line. The project consists of 45 residential rental units with 21 parking spaces, with a unit mix of 15 studios, 15 one-bedrooms, and 5 3-bedrooms. There are 6 IDP units designated for the project. The developer has contributed $10,000 to the Parks Department in their fund for the parks. The project architect, Tim Longanger, how do you say your last name? Longanger, from Embark Studios, will give you a brief overview. The project's architect, Nick Zazul, is here to answer any questions for the board.
Okay, thank you, Lance.
Good evening. So closer look at the site here, where this vacant lot here. It was originally supposed to be, I believe, a continuation of the third building in this line, along with 10 and 20 when those were developed mid-century. The end of the street is the BHA housing development, the MBTA line, the commuter rail along the rear here. It's currently just overgrown site, some overgrown vegetation. Sidewalk ends before you get to the site. There's about a 9 to 10 foot grade change from one end to the next. That, looking at the survey here, you can see mostly occurs along the embankment here. So here's updated landscaping. We intend to improve the landscaping along the length of the street in front of 10 and 20 Thorn as well. The developer currently owns and operates those properties, including new trees, new plantings, upgrades to the sidewalk, continuing the sidewalk, and then some bike parking along the entry here in the front. Because we are because of the grade change, the parking is kind of tucked into the hill. We have 21 spots entry along access to the side here. You enter through the back. 19 of the 21 are covered. We also have covered bike parking in the corner here, some storage, long-term storage, lobby, common space, trash room, elevator core along the front corner here. Looking at elevation, you can see the grade change. The building itself split into two masses to break up the mass of it. Combination of fiber cement siding and panels, framing element and some storefront to kind of highlight the entry here at the corner. This is the Thorn Street elevation. This is the northeast elevation, the high side of the site. So you can see the parking is not visible from here, and there'll be some deck space for the units along the bottom level here. Here is a rendering from the front corner. You can see parking to the rear here. Kind of this framing element to kind of highlight the entry here. In terms of material, color and texture, we kind of split up between the two masses, treat them separately to kind of reduce the overall scale. And then here is a view from the upper side again with the deck space here and the parking below. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board?
What goes on in the space between the two buildings?
Currently, there's parking for 20 Thorn, the next door building behind it. So there's currently access to that from there. We wanted to minimize curb cuts to maintain parking along the street there. So for both buildings, access is along the side and then in the rear. We felt it kind of created a better pedestrian access along the front to kind of get the parking behind.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then I'm...
One more question.
Oh, there you go.
Just one question. Can you just speak a little bit as to why, from a parking ratio perspective of the number of units with the 21 spots, why we think that kind of makes sense for this particular area? Drawing a blank on which commuter rail line that is, but kind of trying to get a sense of, like, are people going to have, like, access to the transportation if we're not having a whole bunch of cars there?
Yes, we feel it's a combination to the access to the bus routes that go along River Street.
Okay.
And because the developer owns several other properties in the area, both on River and those two adjacent, they have some excess parking capacity that is not being used right now. And Nick has some numbers on that as well.
Yeah, Nick Zazula, McDermott, Quilty, and Miller. That's a good question. So we did meet with the East River Street Neighborhood Association on 3 occasions. We met with the Hassan apartment buildings at the rear, at the end, which uses Thorn Street for access to get to the rear. So parking was a consideration throughout that process. And as Tim had mentioned, they purchased those other 2 properties as well as 2 properties on River Street. So those were existing buildings and have been there for a long time. So the parking ratio that they're proposing at the new building is in line with the utilization rates at those existing buildings. So they've kind of taken the rates of what's there. They actually have a lot of excess parking at those other buildings. And so they didn't want to overpark this one. As a result, if there is a need for extra parking at this new building, then they can utilize those existing lots to help with any overflow. Also, 15 out of the 45 units are studios. And, you know, from our research in that neighborhood, with the buses and the train within walking distance from their other buildings, those units typically don't have vehicles. So the ratio starts to get more in line with what the norm is for this type of a building.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you, congratulations. Item number 17, request authorization to issue a scoping determination waiving the requirement for further review pursuant to Article 80, large project review for the rehabilitation of the Haynes House, including exterior improvements, system upgrades, energy enhancements, and accessibility improvements located at 725 through 751 Shawmut Ave, and to take all related actions. Dana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Secretary Polhemus, and Director Golden. The item before us this afternoon is, as stated, a request by the Madison Park Development Corporation, Haynes LLC, to renovate the existing Haynes House building. The Haynes House building, I'm going to flip ahead just briefly to take us to a smaller map that shows where the project is, and bear with me as I point these things out. Located on Shawmut Avenue here, Ruggles Station is further off the map here. Ruggles Street is here, and the DeWitt, newly constructed DeWitt Community Center, also by Madison Park Development Corporation, is behind the existing building. The land itself is part of an urban renewal site, and there is an existing land disposition agreement between ourselves and the development entity. The proposal, as mentioned briefly, I'll articulate that it is existing building, all family rental, all affordable, 131 units. The development team is proposing to perform much needed renovation on the exteriors, as well as perform renovations on some of the units within the building, so thereby providing for much needed enhancements that have gone uncompleted for quite some time. The development team and their architect will provide further detail about the overall process, but I will articulate that this will include some system enhancements, exterior renovations, site improvements, ground floor renovations, and, as stated earlier, enhancements to existing units. Very briefly, in terms of process, a project notification form was submitted in June of this year. There was a comment period that went from July 28th and then extended by mutual agreement to September 10th. The Boston Civic Design Commission waived its review for this project, and we held 2 sessions, one of which was a working session with the residents group of this building to provide opportunity for questions about relocation, et cetera, relocation management, which we'll talk further about, and also a public meeting held on September 5th. The completion of this process allows the development team also to utilize the funding sources that it has currently secured to complete this $18 million project. And so the timely review and approval facilitates that happening and for the construction to occur in a timely manner. And I'll stop, if you don't mind, on one small personal note. As a Boston native, it's a great pleasure, obviously, to be working with this agency, with this mayor. The Haynes House is a place that is very close to my childhood. When my parents separated, my aunt lived in the Haynes House, and we stayed with her there for a couple of years while things got worked out. And it holds a place that's kind of near and dear to my heart. And when we had one of the first resident meetings, I saw these wonderful women of a certain age walk into the room, and I have to say I got a little tear in my eye, because it reminded me of those days with my Aunt Oreen, who loved us dearly and fed us immensely. And, and to be able to help facilitate the completion of a project and a building that I was in when, as the saying goes, knee-high to a grasshopper, is very heartwarming, and it makes one realize why we do what we do. So with that, I will stop and introduce Russ Tanner, who is the Vice President of Real Estate for Madison Park.
Okay, thank you, Dana.
Thank you, Dana. I believe we're going to ask the architect to run through the slides. Is that the best approach? It's a brief slide presentation, and I'll be happy to address any questions.
Thank you. I'm Ross Spear. I'm with Davis Square Architects, and thank you. I can be brief. The project is a renovation project. The interior, I'll start with the interior because it's very simply driven by code compliance. There is little handicapped accessibility. We're providing all new compliance, 7 new accessible units in full accessibility compliance, and system upgrades. There are no sprinklers in the buildings. Fire alarms need to be upgraded. So the interiors are driven by code and system related things. The real opportunities in the exterior of the building. This is the corner of Shawmut and Ruggles. The building right now, constructed in the mid-70s, early to mid-70s, 74 or so, is about 300-foot long continuous building of brick, which is failing. This is the entrance off of their fire lane. The brick needs to be replaced. It's failing from the building. So that gives us, this is the entrance from the rear. This is an old photo, and will soon be the courtyard between the new DeWitt Community Center and Haynes. So The exterior gives us an opportunity to put in all new materials that allow us to have a much better residential rhythm. The residents are very excited. They see this as an opportunity to really be proud of where they are, and to us to accentuate what was previously an undulating layer of brick is now defined by bay elements, field elements, a ground floor plane. Much better defined entry and much more open. Handicap compliance is less a ramp and more of a pleasant walkway. This is the rear entrance, which will be seamlessly integrated to the rear entrance to Ruggles. So this is the opportunity for us to move forward on the exteriors of the building. So that's our opportunity. The ground floor will see more renovations than pretty extensively, mainly driven by compliance and providing community rooms, office spaces, mail facilities, bike rooms, and other common area spaces.
That concludes the presentation.
That concludes it.
Questions if you'd like.
Okay, thank you, Dana. Thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
Lollipop sculpture?
Yes, it's there. It is at resident request. It is going to remain there and get cleaned up a bit, and we hope it eventually will be part of the other public art installations that we have in mind along Ruggles Street.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are there any further questions?
It seems to me that this is exactly the kind of project that everyone in the city is dying for now. And it says it was financed back in the 70s by Mass Housing Section 13A. Like, I wonder if there's any I don't know, this isn't I don't know who could answer this question, but is a stream of money, why aren't we able to build more things like this now, I guess is my question. Is it just because things are more expensive?
Yeah, I would say from in my experience with other projects and other funding sources that we all deal with, that it's the scarcity of sources at various levels. It's at the state level, federal, et cetera, that there are limits to what can be built and how much there's there. And I believe my colleague Tim Davis, who's the housing expert, is going to come and offer
Tim jumped
a
up.
slightly
Tim.
more nuanced version of my answer.
It was mentioned this was a 13A program. The 13A program was a program just of its moment that Mass Housing did, and all those units that were created by that program are now at risk, at severe risk.
Okay.
So the new
they had a time limit, you mean?
Yes. So the Newcastle Saranac project that we brought to you in conjunction with the 60 Kilmarnock project is a 13A. So we're saving those 100 units there. We're working on additional 13A units. Like I said, it was great to have it at that moment, but it's expired. We don't have programs like that. We don't have programs like the Section 8 project-based programs that we used to have. But thankfully, this is a 13A that was already in the possession of a nonprofit. So we're able to kind of take that next step to keep this one in the portfolio.
Are these permanent? Are these permanently affordable?
Absolutely. The affordability covenants, many of the units are right now already restricted, and then this refinancing will wrap around nearly all of the units in the project.
Great.
It'll be long term.
Great. Thank you.
And I just wanted to confirm it definitely says that no one's going to be displaced, but you mentioned kind of relocation and how that's going to work. How is that going to work?
I'll let the development team describe it.
Again, Russ Tanner with Madison Park. This is our fourth occupied rehab, 3 of them in the village and another one on St. Patolph Street that the board here helped us with. So we're getting pretty good at that by now, and we just finished up Smith House, which was a high-rise elderly building, and we managed to undergo a thorough occupied rehab renovation there by emptying out a stack at a time, a vertical, entire 12-floor vertical stack. And so you have to accumulate vacancies, and then we relocated some residents, a few residents at a time, off to off-site units, renovated an entire stack, moved people back in, go to the next stack. And that is roughly our plan here with Haynes House, is to we're hoping to be able to get 2 stacks at a time. That would be 14 units
vacant, enough vacancies and a few off-site resources, empty them out, renovate those units, move people around. We're getting pretty good at it. And the goal here absolutely is not to displace anyone and to make sure that the affordability is consistent with the current occupancy and to keep people living here as long as they wish.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, and Dana is recommending that we pass this. A motion is in order.
Love you.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Okay, item number 18, contractual. We need a motion to pay the bills and the invoices.
I move that we pay our bills.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 19, personnel. Heather.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 4 items for your consideration on the BRA personnel agenda. 2 appointments, Matthew Fitzgerald in the Office of the General Counsel, Shayna Berry in the MIS Department. 1 travel item for consideration, Trin Nguyen, Director of Office of Workforce Development, traveling for the National League of Cities City Summit in California. And lastly, approval of employee procedures as outlined in your memorandum.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Item number 20, Director's Update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through you to the members. I want to call attention to a couple of really significant accomplishments of staff outside of City Hall. Recently, the Urban Science Journal published a piece that was co-authored by multiple members of our research division staff. So I want to thank and congratulate Phil Granbury, Christina Kim, Matt Ressiger, Jonathan Lee, Alvaro Lima, and Kevin Kang for the article that they recently had published. And it focused on population projections and methodologies that effectively can help us identify future migration trends into and out of cities. So this is a methodology that's important to us, given what we do for a living. So much of what we do is about demography. It's about the population. How many people are coming here? How many people are exiting? What do they need? Where do they need to work? What skill sets do they have that allow them to work? So demography in so many ways is destiny for us, and it's really important for us to know not just who's here now, but who's likely to come and who's likely to leave, and again, what their needs are. So this population projection methodology helps us with our planning, our development, and our policy making activities here at the agency. So thanks to our research division for their work being published and recognized in the Urban Science Journal. Also similar, sticking with academia for a while, there's an exhibit over at the Harvard Graduate School of Design. It continues through the middle of October. It started in the summer. It's called Urban Intermedia, City Archive Narrative. And fundamentally, to oversimplify what this exhibit is about is telling the story, the present reality, the history, telling the story of 4 major global cities, Berlin, Istanbul, Mumbai, and Boston, purely through visual narrative as opposed to verbal or written narrative. So this is a concept for telling a story without the words. And again, it's an exhibit that is being carried on through the middle of October at the Harvard Graduate School of Design. Our research department made significant contributions to this effort, as did Ala Ziskin in our GIS department. So I thank them all for their contributions. Tonight's a quick meeting. In my 10 years here, I don't think we've gone this quick in any of them, so I don't want to slow it down. But I do think it's worth pointing out. As of right now, we're just under 11 million square feet of development approved for this calendar year. That puts us probably about the 3rd most prolific year for approvals of the past dozen. It may be even higher than that. I looked at the past 12 years. So right now it looks like we're about 3rd out of the past 12 years for sheer volume of square footage permitted. By the end of the calendar year, it could actually perhaps move into second position. So once again, this reiterates that we remain in a period of unprecedented growth. And again, not only are these projects and the square footage being permitted, people are going over to the Inspectional Services Department and pulling the building permits that allow these projects to actually get in the ground. So the building boom continues. The activity of this year by the board, the approvals continue to manifest that reality. And again, it pays significant dividends for all Bostonians. And with that, I thank you and have a great night.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian. We need a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn this meeting.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
It's not even 5 o'clock.
I know. This was the quickest ever I've ever